Her name is Gudbjorg Bjornsdottir. And when I first met her, I must admit, I thought she had a few kangaroos loose in the top paddock. It turned out that she just had fairies at the bottom of the garden.
The grey hair.
Tiny moustache.
Gudbjorg Bjornsdottir is describing a gnome she's known for years. He's about 80, is wearing a red waistcoat, and of course that snappy little moustache.
Does he live there?
For those who can't see him, perhaps you need to visit Iceland, where it's believed there could be as many as 20,000 characters just like him, or that elf hiding in the shrubbery. You see, when the Vikings first came here 1100 years ago, they soon realised they were not alone. For behind invisible doors in the cliffs, in lonely, empty Arctic plains, and those great big rocks near the freeway, live gnomes, elves and fairies, collectively known as hidden people.
This is one of the most remarkable places that we have here, which is this hidden people that lives in this stone here.
His name is Magnus Skarfedensson, Iceland's foremost expert on all things hidden.
We have on file, and I have met witnesses that have been invited into these stones. And inside there is a farm with kitchen and tables and chairs and everything. And they drink coffee there and eat pancakes, and everything was very natural. We don't have any logic explanation to this. This simply is and happens, and thousands of Icelanders have communications with these beings.
And apparently these beings actually do look just like this, and this, and this, which is all rather a relief given our meagre special effects budget.
Okay, one more time.
Scandinavian folklore is full of mystical figures, but in Iceland the hidden people have managed to survive scepticism and ridicule. While only 10% of Icelanders genuinely believe in them, about 80% don't like to mess with the prospect, and one of those people is the president.
You have to realize that for 1,000 years, the total population of Iceland was only about 70 to 80,000 people. So the people enlarged the population of the country by thinking about elves and fairies and trolls that inhabited fjords and valleys and rocks and hills and mountains. So even in the dark days of winter in the isolated farms, they knew they had company. And we still believe that in this country we have company, and give them my greetings when you meet them.
30 years ago, this rock lay in the path of a planned freeway in Reykjavik. Authorities wanted to blow it up, but they hadn't figured on the family of hidden people living inside, who promptly put a curse on the whole project. Things started to go wrong, machinery failed, blokes hit their thumbs with hammers. Anyway, the Transport Ministry finally called in a consultant to talk to the unhappy stone owners.
They were very angry and anxious that their home would be taken. So in the end, there was made agreement between the state road company and the authorities and the hidden people here in the stone, that the hidden people would move out for a week and the authorities would move their home very gently 15 meters to where it is now.
I noticed the rock had been cut in half, but was too polite to ask if that meant they'd subdivided. This is probably the most famous psychic hill in Iceland. It sits in the splendour of suburbia, near the basketball courts and the high school. The Vikings saw elves here too, and they've been around ever since. Although in 1974, their home was nearly destroyed when a cement truck was driven over it.
When you do harm or rough things, a brutal thing to hidden people and elves, you get a revenge. And this cement truck driver, he drove over their houses. This 9-ton heavy truck lifted up and fell on its side without any logical explanation at all.
Revenge of the elves.
None of the witnesses were in the slightest doubt that that was a revenge of the elves.
At this point, I was wondering if Icelanders perhaps enjoy too much fresh air.
Oh, my grandmother very much had an ongoing dialogue with them. I have not been blessed in that way.
And
but you can also...
your grandmother was a woman, I'm sure, of very sound
Oh,
mind
absolutely. She was very down to earth, very down to earth. But you can also look at the paintings of one of our great painters of the 20th century, Kjarval. I have one here in the residence, where he paints elves and trolls and fairy horses into the landscape.
Despite his knowledge and enthusiasm, Magnus has none of the psychic powers required to see those who dwell in these rocks.
Well, you can just imagine, being the expert in elves and hidden people for 23 years, always have to talk with second-hand witnesses. I would give a fortune to being able to knock on the door and be let in.
Það með húsin og svo áframhaldandi þar byggt svona byggt út við, já.
Instead, Magnus has to rely on people like Gudborg Bjornsdottir,
And lítur hann út? How does he look like?
who, although too polite to say too much, reckoned we were all a bit odd because we couldn't see the little bloke in the red waistcoat.
Hún var svona konur og hann svona. Og hann býr í þessum hús hérna. Ég sá hann átti von á þér.
And what did I make of it all?
Og hann svona núna alveg og hann
Well, the best explanation I could find came from an old bloke I met the day before. He remembered as a child asking his mum if the hidden people existed. Her reply, well, if they ever did, I'm sure they still do now.